Hey guys, it's Ryan here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we're doing another episode of the Sword and Sorcery Book Club. Today we're continuing on with The Road to the Scourge of the Serpent. Today we're looking at the fourth video that covers the fourth story we're doing for this reading challenge. Today we're looking at the Shadow Kingdom, which is a Kull story. It's the second Kull story, actually, so... Well, technically it's the first story to be published in a magazine for Kull, but within the chronology of Robert E. Howard's writing, based on research done by a bunch of different people, the Shadow Kingdom is the second Kull story, with the first story being an unpublished story that was later called Exile of Atlantis, which is a very short story that tells us a little bit about young Kull and his tribe in Atlantis. And then I think after that he goes off and becomes an exile because he perverted their justice in some way, right? I think they were trying to kill a young woman, and he killed her before the flames took her to spare her some of the pain that was going to come, and that made his people turn on him, if I remember correctly, right? But the Shadow Kingdom was published in Weird Tales in August 1929. It is the first Kull story, like I said. It is also the first Thurian Age story, and if you're not aware, the Thurian Age is what the Hyborian Age is to us, right? An ancient, unknown, very, very old time in human history that is so old that it has, been erased from the world, right? The Thurian Age is the same thing to the Hyborian Age, because Robert E. Howard believed in the cyclical rising of civilization, falling of civilization, cataclysm, and then cycle, right? And if you're interested in stuff like that in the real world, there's a lot of alternative history type stuff that you can read into. Graham Hancock is kind of the biggest kind of guy in that sort of stuff, and there's like the sacred numerology guys as well, so you can read up on stuff based on them, but it's not really here or there, right? So this is a pretty interesting story. It's kind of long, and it is kind of like a self-contained story. It introduces us to Kull. It tells us the history of how he became king, and then it introduces us to his best friend or his companion, Brule, the Spear Slayer, who is a Pict. And the interesting thing is that Brule and Kull are from warring tribes. The Picts are always at war with the Atlanteans, and because they are now in Volusia, they have to kind of interact in a way that they wouldn't normally do so. And because they're also two savage men in a cultured world, they find some sort of companionship with each other, right? And this is really the main thing that differentiates Kull from Conan, is that Kull has a partner in the appearance of Brule, but also that Kull is a bit more thinking and logical, and maybe kind of more introspective than Conan is, right? They both have the same kind of like savage man, really unsure about how to navigate the cultured lands that they find themselves in, but Kull has to, minimize some of his initial thoughts to just murder people to, get what he wants, because he's king of Volusia, which is the, ancient great kingdom, right? And so this kind of makes him different from Conan, and it's pretty cool. I actually really enjoy the differences, and I like Kull a lot, because I think that in the Thurian Age, the stories that I've read so far from Kull do explore a little bit more of like the mysticism of these savage barbarian characters than something like Conan does, right? But the story actually is introducing us to Kull. It tells us that he's the king of Volusia, and it tells us that, he is someone that kind of took the throne by force, and with a lot of luck, he managed to keep it. And now the contingency of Picts that live here, led by Canu, an ancient Pictish statesman, has found a plot against him, right? And so Canu gets Kull to come visit him. He tells him in some riddles some of the elements there. It kind of almost feels like a scene out of Game of Thrones, right? Which is kind of cool, because Game of Thrones was inspired by Conan and The Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings, right? And as he talks to this man, he learns that he will send an emissary, right? Another guy. And it turns out that Conan had met with him before. And it's introduced to us as Brule, the Spear Slayer. And they become friends. And the way that they become friends is initially through some, mutual respect of their positions. But then because Brule is sent there to teach Kull about the Serpent Men and the plot that the Serpent Men have made in order to kill him, replace him with one of their own, and lead the thrones of man into possible destruction, right? Brule is kind of like the character that gives us the ancient wisdom that Kull needs in order to survive, right? So he teaches us the special phrase, Ka Nama Ka La Jarama, which is a word or a phrase. I can't remember the name of the particular word that describes this, right? But it's like a code. If you say it, they have to repeat it back. And if they can't say it right, that's because they're not human. They're serpent men. And so you kill them, right? And a lot of the interesting stuff that happens here is a lot of world building, right? So Brule tells us that the serpent men are an ancient race, one of the few left on the planet that are not human or descendants of ape men in some way. There's also wolfmen, but there's very few of those. The bird women, the batmen, and all of these other groups have died out, but the serpent men still survive. And they used to be more powerful than humans, and so they want to restore that, what they see as the natural order of things. And so they crave the thrones of men. They desire them because they're going to use this with subterfuge and magic to take us back to the time in which they have been more powerful, right? Or at least that's what I remember from the story. And the way is, the thing is that they have special magic that allows them to take on the shape of humans that they find important, right? And this is kind of similar to the Faceless Men from Game of Thrones, because it's kind of unclear how it happens. Either they mold skin into something that looks like the face of the person that they are trying to take over, or they cast an illusion spell, right? It's not clear because it's not like an illusion falls when they die. It rather seems like their faces morph back to their snake faces, which is interesting. And like I said, Brule gives us this phrase, Ka Nama Ka La Jarama. And then as they're doing this, Kull and Brule end up killing 20 different serpent men, right? 18 of them were hiding themselves as Kull's guard, although they had killed the original ones, the real ones. And there was 2 other ones that were assassins sent to kill Kull as well. So Brule kills one initially, and then Kull kills the other one, and then they go off and they fight the 18 men that are the serpent men that are cosplaying as his guard. And then for a few days, Kull and Brule kind of stay alert. They don't sleep, and they try to figure out what they're going to do because they know that this plot is coming. It didn't succeed initially, so they're going to try and try again until they do. And so they have to find a way to avoid this grim fate, right? And so as Kull is going to go meet with his leaders, his advisors, he is actually forced into a illusion, I guess, and Brule is as well, and they end up in the wrong place. They end up in this cursed room that used to belong to an ancient king that they saw as a ghost recently in the story. And when he's there, he's talking to his statesmen, and then they stop listening, and they just get up, and they're all coming towards him with knives, kind of like Caesar and Brutus or something like that. And Kull manages to stave them off. Brule comes to help him, and so Kull and Brule kill another 10 to 20 serpent men. And thankfully, they manage to do this because the serpent men are not good at war. They're good at magic, they're good at subterfuge, but they're not good at fighting. And I think this is because most of them don't bother learning how to. And this is kind of silly on their part, but whatever, it's for the sake of the story, right? And so they see what happened, the illusion breaks, and they rush off to the actual chamber where the advisors are. And when they get there, they see that another version of Kull is there trying to lead his men and do the stuff that they want to do. And so Kull climbs up into the rafters and throws himself at the usurper, and they have a fight. Kull manages to beat the fake one, and so his face gets unveiled as a snake man in front of everyone, and Brule helps him defeat any other people around them. And then they take these bodies, they throw them in the cursed room. Kull uses a sword to slash the bindings or something of the building, and so they lock this place down. They seal this chamber with his ancient sword, and they go off, right? And as the danger has passed, Kull realizes that he's insanely tired. He has a lot of blood loss from all his injuries, and he falls forward onto the ground, and he's asleep. Everyone thinks he died, but Brule's like, nah, dude, he's just tired. He's just sleeping. And they go heal him, and their stories continue from there. And this was a pretty good story. I actually liked the, skulking about, the subterfuge, the kind of political intrigue aspect of this story. It's interesting. This one is pretty similar to what we read previously in this reading challenge, The God in the Bowl. But The God in the Bowl, to me, at least in this reread of it, felt a bit boring. Like, a lot of the stuff that happens in the middle before Conan faces off against the God in the Bowl feels kind of unnecessary and boring, like it doesn't lead anywhere. And you could kind of say the same thing about some of the stuff that Brule talks with Kull about in this story. But for whatever reason, probably because I like the world building a lot, this does not end up coming off that way. And I actually really enjoy just about everything in this story. I think maybe some of the introductory stuff that gives us information about Kull could have been reworked to be given to us in a different order, just so we could see Kull's origins and then have him, resting at the parade, and then have him deal with the machinations to kill him, instead of having him at the parade, then some of his origins, then the killing stuff, right? I feel like maybe the order could have been changed, but regardless, it's pretty good. Although you do see some funny kind of situations here where for whatever reason, Robert E. Howard decides that every time he starts kind of a new paragraph, instead of a new portion of the story, instead of giving it a title all the time, he just capitalizes the first word, kind of like in a chapter book, right? And it's not really weird or anything like that, but it's just kind of funny because he doesn't do that in other stories. He definitely doesn't do it in any of the Conan ones, as far as I remember. And this one even has chapter headings. So he has chapter headings, and then he has like scene changes through the capitalization, but it doesn't really feel like it's necessary to do that for most of them. And so you can kind of see him kind of developing his style and the kind of silly Wild West like lack of rule type feeling that some of this writing has, because he does whatever he wants, and it probably gets published the way he sends it, unless it's heavily edited because of whatever reasons they need, right? And so I thought it was cool, just from a learning perspective, just kind of like seeing some of the interesting changes as we go through Robert E. Howard learning to write and developing his skills, right? Although maybe this is actually by the end or near the end of his career, because this is 1929, right? And I think he kills himself in 36. But he started writing professionally in 25. So I guess this is still early in his career. And he's kind of doing these stylistic things for the sake of doing them, right? But I don't know. That's really all there is to say. This is a pretty long story, so this video might not be long enough to cover all the minutia, but I hope I got all the clear things. In terms of how this affects the Scourge of the Serpent, well, basically this is the setup for the Scourge of the Serpent, right? We saw it in the Kane, Solomon Kane miniseries, and we see it in some of the highlights that we've seen from Evangel's Free Comic Book Day, right? We see that the Serpent Men are going to be a thing, and we're probably going to have to deal with them as they function as subordinates to Thought Amon, right? Which is kind of interesting, because if I remember correctly, in one of the other stories, they are actually subordinates to Tulsa Doom, but I can't remember if that's correct or not. I feel like that I remember that from the Cat and Skull, but I didn't reread that story to make sure that that was the case. So if I'm wrong, let me know down below. But basically, the Shadow Kingdom and the snake people trying to use subterfuge to take on the roles of statesmen is a thing that is even real life conspiracy. We talked about that with Jeff Shanks a few weeks ago, but also I think it's kind of be the baseline concept that we're going to see in the Scourge of the Serpent. So that'll be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, not much else to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys in a few days.